Devaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottama Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudiraye Nashtaprayeshva Bhadresho Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtike. Reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 9, Chapter 10, the Pastimes of Lord Ramachandra. Text number 3. Tasya Anucharitam Rajan. Tasya Anucharitam Rajan. Tasya Anucharitam Rajan. Rishibhihi Tattvadarshibhihi. Rishibhistattvadarshibhihi. Rishibhistattvadarshibhihi. Shrutam hi varnitam bhuri. Shrutam hi varnitam bhuri. Shrutam hi varnitam bhuri. Tvaya Sita pater moho. Tvaya Sita pater moho. Tvaya Sita pater moho. Tasyanucharitam rajan. Rishibhistattvadarshibhihi. Shrutam hi varnitam bhuri. Tvaya Sita pater muhuh. Tasyanucharitam rajan. Rishibhistattvadarshibhihi. Shrutam hi varnitam bhuri. Tvaya Sita pater moho. Tasyanucharitam rajan. Rishibhistattvadarshibhihi. Shrutam hi varnitam bhuri. Tvaya Sita pater moho. Tasyanucharitam rajan. Rishibhistattvadarshibhihi. Shrutam hi varnitam bhuri. Tvaya Sita pater muhuh. Tasya, of him, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Ramachandra and his brothers. Anucharitam, transcendental activities. Rajan, O King, Maharaj Parikshit. Rishibhihi, by great sages or saintly persons. Tattvadarshibihi, by persons who know the absolute truth. Shrutam, have all been heard. He, indeed, Varnitam, as they have been so nicely described. bhuri, many, tvaya, by you, Sitapate, of Lord Ramachandra, the husband of Mother Sita, Mohoho, more than often. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. Translation. O King Parikshit, the transcendental activities of Lord Ramachandra have been described by great saintly persons who have seen the truth. Because you have heard again and again about Lord Ramachandra, the husband of Mother Sita, I shall describe these activities only in brief. Please listen. Please repeat this translation after me. O King Parikshit, the transcendental activities of Lord Ramachandra have been described by great saintly persons who have seen the truth. Because you have heard again and again about Lord Ramachandra, the husband of Mother Sita, I shall describe these activities only in brief. Please listen. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. Modern Rakshasas, posing as educationally advanced merely because they have doctorates, have tried to prove that Lord Ramachandra is not the Supreme Personality of Godhead, but an ordinary person. But those who are learned and spiritually advanced will never accept such notions. They will accept the descriptions of Lord Ramachandra and his activities only as presented by Tattvadarshis, those who know the absolute truth. In Bhagavad Gita 4.34, the Supreme Personality of Godhead advises, Tad vidhi pranipatena pariprashnena sevaya upadekshanti te jnanam jnaninas tattvadarshinaha. Just try to learn the truth by approaching a spiritual master, inquire from him submissively, and render service unto him. The self-realized soul can impart knowledge unto you because he has seen the truth. Unless one is Tattvadarshi, in complete knowledge of the absolute truth, one cannot describe the activities of the personality of Godhead. Therefore, although there are many so-called Ramayanas or histories of Lord Ramachandra's activities, some of them are not actually authoritative. Sometimes Lord Ramachandra's activities are described in terms of one's own imaginations, speculations, or material sentiments. But the characteristics of Lord Ramachandra should not be handled as something imaginary. While describing the history of Lord Ramachandra, Shukadev Goswami told Maharaj Parikshit, you have already heard about the activities of Lord Ramachandra. Apparently, therefore, 5,000 years ago, there were many Ramayanas or histories of Lord Ramachandra's activities, and there are many still. But we must select only those books written by Tattvadarshis, Jnaninas Tattvadarshinaha, not the books of so-called scholars who claim knowledge only on the basis of a doctorate. This is a warning by Shukadev Goswami, Rishabhis Tattvadarshibhihi. Although the Ramayana composed by Valmiki is a huge literature, the same activities are summarized here by Shukadev Goswami in a few verses. Thus ends the Bhaktivedanta purport. Om Ajnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya चक्षुरुन्मीलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। नमः ॐ विष्णुपादाय कृष्णप्रेष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदान्तस्वामिन्निति नामिने। नमस्ते सारस्वते देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेषशून्यवादी पाश्चात्यदेशतारिणे। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौरभक्तवृंद। हरे कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे राम 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 हरे हरे। So the Srimad Bhagavatam is like the encyclopedia of spiritual life. So all descriptions about the personality of Godhead, Bhagavan, have been given here in different aspects, like the various incarnations. So the incarnation of Lord Ramachandra has been described in detail in the Valmiki Ramayana. But in brief, Shukadeva Goswami is summarizing the activities in this section of the Bhagavatam. Now, a warning is given by Shukadeva Goswami to all of us that the transcendental activities of Lord Ramachandra have been described by great saintly persons who have seen the truth, Tattvadarshibhihi. This word Tattvadarshi appears in the Bhagavad Gita in two places. One is quoted by Srila Prabhupada, that in 4th chapter, 34th verse, while describing transcendental knowledge, Krishna says, Tad vidhi pranipatena pariprashnena sevaya upadekshanti te jnanam jnaninas tattvadarshinaha. While explaining how we should understand the transcendental knowledge. Transcendental knowledge is knowledge pertaining to spiritual subject matter, spirit. We are spirit, we are not the body. So we should know something about our body and also know something about our self, the real self, spirit. So the spiritual knowledge generally is not available in ordinary books, only in the authorized Vedic literature. Vedic literature also, there are so many branches of knowledge covered by the Vedas. Veda means knowledge. So all branches of knowledge relevant for human society have been covered in the Vedas. But the Vedas are not just describing material subject matter. Vedas also describe the spiritual subject matter. And Vedas also teach us that spiritual subject matter is more important than material subject matter. So, when we say Vedic literature, generally we mean the portion of the Vedas which describe the spiritual subject matter. So, the spiritual subject matter in the Vedas is spread throughout the Vedas. Even while describing some material subject matter, the spiritual aspect is also touched upon in many places in the Vedas. But since people are very much inclined to enjoy materially, therefore they are carried away by descriptions in the Vedas about material subjects, about material gain, material profit, material enjoyment, material pleasures, material facilities, etc. Therefore, the concentrated description of spiritual subject matter in the Vedas is what is called as Vedanta, the conclusive part of the Vedic literature. That is the Upanishads. Upanishads contain the philosophical essence of the Vedas. Philosophical essence in terms of the spiritual subjects, not the material subjects. So Vedanta begins with Athato Brahma Jignasa. Inquire about what is spirit, what is God, what is the absolute truth. So that Brahma Jignasa is the beginning of Vedanta. And it has been thoroughly described philosophically in the Upanishads. But Upanishads are very dry because it contains the philosophy exclusively. So therefore, in order to make it more easily understandable and more palatable for people in general, the learned Vyasadeva, he compiled the Itihasas and Puranas. Itihasas and Puranas. Even between the Itihasas and Puranas, Itihasas contain exclusively the history of the great devotees and the Supreme Personality of Godhead. That part of Itihasa is teaching us the spiritual subject matter. There are other histories also which are describing some relevant historical information of bygone ages. But those histories are not as important as the history pertaining to the incarnations of the Supreme Lord and His pure devotees. Therefore, even among histories, Itihasas, the Itihasa called Ramayana and Mahabharata are most important because they exclusively contain the activities of the Supreme Lord and His pure devotees. They are centered around that. So Ramayana contains the activities of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Ramachandra, and his expansions. Lord Rama appeared along with his expansions. Rama, Lakshmana, Bharata, Shatrughna. All the four of them are Vishnu Tattva. They are the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Vishnu or Narayana. They are incarnations. They are not ordinary persons. But because Rama's activities may seem like the activities of a person of this world, so therefore, some people who are not receiving this knowledge properly in Parampara system, they are simply trying to present their own viewpoint about Ramayana or Lord Ramachandra's activities or history by doing some so-called research. Especially in the university type of education, a lot of importance is given for advanced knowledge through the ascending process. The scriptures explain there are two processes of getting knowledge. One is the ascending process, which is followed in our modern system of education in the schools, colleges, and universities. That is, whatever is known by our direct sense perception, that is accepted as the basis of further expanding the body of knowledge. It is admitted that through direct sense perception we can only get limited knowledge. That even the modern scholars, learned people, they admit. But then to acquire more knowledge, they have got the ascending process. Ascending process means we try to discover, find out things which are not known through the process of our own sense perception and mental speculation and intellectual adjustment. This supposes that everything that is knowable is within the purview of our senses, mind, and intelligence. But the scriptures, the Vedic literature, the spiritual part of the Vedic literature, they clearly tell us that the subject matter of God is beyond the comprehension of our senses, mind, and intelligence. This applies not only to human beings, but it applies to even more intelligent personalities living in higher planets who got greater powers, who are millions of times more intelligent than the most intelligent human being on the earth. Our modern day scholars of universities do not even know the existence of more learned personalities in higher planets. Some of them theorize that there is no life on higher planets because they are not able to discover symptoms of life. So Srila Prabhupada gives a very simple analogy to help us understand how their methods are defective. Supposing somebody from some other planet lands on this earth planet to find out if there is life on the earth planet. Supposing he lands in the middle of one Sahara desert. He comes, he lands in whatever his spacecraft, picks up some sand, looks around, there is no life. Maybe there is some cactus, but even that cactus he does not discover. He is not able to see in the vicinity. So he takes some sand and goes back. This is what I found on the earth planet. You can very easily understand this person, his whole method is completely defective. He is concluding something about the entire planet which is huge compared to the small portion he would have landed on and discovered, whatever is there. Similarly, these people, they get some photograph of some portion of some particular planet And then they say, oh, there is water. Oh, there is no water. There is only some rocks. I mean, what kind of analysis is this? Is that the way we analyze the Earth planet and conclude what the Earth planet is all about? No. So, the methods of ascending process are inherently defective. Why? Because of our limited senses, limited mind, and limited intelligence. So, with these limitations, there is always a possibility of either going wrong in our analysis based on some discoveries, or we will never be able to actually know or realize or get knowledge about those things beyond our ability to perceive or comprehend through our senses, mind, and intelligence, individually and collectively. So, therefore, the scriptures say there is the descending process where perfect knowledge from the perfect source is handed down. And it is simply to be received by preparing oneself to receive properly. That's all. So, when we receive such knowledge, then we come to know about so many things which are otherwise unknowable. The very subject matter about God, the absolute truth, that itself is the most important subject that we cannot know through our senses, mind, or intelligence. The spiritualists called Jnanis, they keep on speculating, and they use the knowledge given in the Vedas even, because they understand the Vedas are giving us knowledge about God who cannot be seen or perceived using our mind, senses, intelligence, everything they understand. But still, the Vedic knowledge itself, they don't want to receive it in the descending process. They want to speculate and figure out themselves what is told in the Vedas. So their argument is that after all, Vedas are composed in a particular language. If we learn the language, then we can actually understand what is written there. It is like telling, if you know English, you can read a medical textbook, study a medical textbook written in English, explained in English language, and then you can become a first-class doctor. Does it work like that? No, it never works like that. Theory maybe, if at all, but still you have to approach an expert doctor who's got theoretical and practical knowledge, and then only you will even understand the theory properly. Otherwise, simply some speculation, you may have your own theories. It is useless. Having your own theories, what is the use of that theory? Similarly, these Jnanis have theoretical knowledge of God. They can give discourses, they can argue, they can write books, but ultimately, they have not seen the truth, the absolute truth. Seen means, it's not seeing with these eyes. It is realizing, perceiving reality as it is, as the truth. So that perceiving reality, the absolute truth or God or the highest truth, absolute truth, that is not possible through the jnana process. It's not possible through the jnana process. If they undertake the process of undergoing severe austerities, by which there is revelation within the heart, there is a process of revelation in the heart, because the Supreme Lord as Paramatma is seated in the heart of everyone. And if somebody undergoes severe austerities to get that revelation, then the maximum possible revelation by this jnana process, coupled with severe austerities, is realizing that the absolute truth is non-material, is not anything to do with matter, is completely different from matter. Then there are the descriptions in the Upanishads about the non-material characteristics of the absolute truth. Apanipadau javano grihita. Upanishads, many descriptions are there, negative descriptions. So then they take pleasure in studying the Upanishads with this understanding that the absolute truth is non-material. And they go on describing what is not God. They go on describing not this, not that. In fact, Shankaracharya has written many songs describing the Supreme Lord or God or absolute truth as non-material. Na bhumim, na tejo, na vayu, na kham, na indriyam va, na tesham samuhaha. Like that. So he goes on describing not this, not this, not this, neti, neti. This is the process. There is even a process in the jnana method followed by the followers of Shankaracharya especially. Neti, neti, na iti. What the absolute truth is not. But if you ask for a positive description, they can never give you a positive description. They'll never give you a positive description. It's like telling, if you ask me, where is your house in Mysore? So if I keep on telling you, it's not in Siddhartha layout, it's not in Jayanagar, except Jayanagar, I will tell all other places. And if you have never been to Mysore and you come with this description, then you ask somebody, can you tell me where is this particular place, ISKCON temple, I am trying to go. Of course, if you say ISKCON temple, people will immediately say, I know where it is, because it's famous. But it is some house which nobody knows exactly, simply by you are telling the partial address, somewhere in Mysore. It's not in this place, not in that place, not in that place. People will just go around in circles. They'll say, what is this kind of description? Why don't you give me the direct address? I will tell you where it is. Is it not? So it's most practical to have the positive description and also maybe the negative description, so that you don't get misled into some other thing being wrongly described as the place. Okay. So similarly, the jnanis, their understanding of the absolute truth is only a negative description. No positive description. Whereas the yogis who meditate on the Paramatma in the heart, they have a positive understanding of the absolute truth. What the form of the absolute truth looks like. They conceive that form in the heart and then they meditate on that form. And they have to perform such meditation after withdrawing the mind and senses from all other sense objects, so as to concentrate on that description, on that form, conceived form in the heart. It takes millions and billions of years. Panthastu koti shata vatsara sampragamyo. Koti shata vatsara. Of the order of hundreds of crores of years. So who has got the patience to actually do this kind of meditation? So among the yogis who follow the Ashtanga Yoga process, most of them are actually carried away by the yogic siddhis. Yogic siddhis. And these yogic siddhis are simply distractions for somebody who wants to realize God through this process of Ashtanga Yoga. It's simply a distraction. The goal of Ashtanga Yoga actually is to realize God, whose form actually is the form described in the Ashtanga Yoga process on which they meditate. But that form is completely transcendental form. It is not a material form. And that form is not perceivable by our present senses, mind or intelligence. It's not perceivable or understandable or recognizable by our present senses, mind, intelligence. So even the descriptions in the books or the speculations of the mind, imaginations of great scholars, nothing can actually reveal the actual Supreme Lord's form as the Paramatma in the heart. Another difficulty is the form of Paramatma is that form that is 400 form that is described, the form of Narayana. But also this Paramatma has entered into the heart of the soul. Anoraniyamsam. This is the description in the Bhagavad Gita. So Srila Prabhupada explains Anoraniyamsam means very, very, very tiny, atomic in size. Now even atomic in size, how small? That smaller than the spirit soul. The spirit soul itself is a very, very tiny particle described in the Upanishads as 1/10,000th part of the tip of the hair point in size. Now what instrument can be there which can actually perceive this 1/10,000th part of the tip of the hair point in size? And even if somebody, let's say, discovers something which can actually magnify such a small particle, it is not a material particle. The spirit soul is not a material particle. So all their instruments, the scientists, their instruments are only meant for perceiving something material. This is completely different, a different substance called spirit, that they don't even know what is spirit. So they cannot even perceive the spirit soul. Now the super soul, Paramatma, is smaller than the spirit soul and has entered into the heart of this spirit soul. Anoraniyamsam. This is the meaning of that verse in the Bhagavad Gita. 8th chapter, 9th verse. Kavim Puranam Anushasitaram Anoraniyamsam Anusmaredyaha. Like this, it's a big description of the presence of the Supreme Lord in the heart of everybody as the super soul. So the super soul is a very, very, very tiny particle, smaller than the spirit soul itself. And that tiny particle, who can actually see, even by great amount of austerities, even by getting yogic siddhi, all kinds of siddhis, they cannot perceive the spiritual substance. They cannot see themselves, what to speak of seeing the Paramatma within the heart. They cannot see themselves, because it is spiritual substance, completely opposite of matter in every respect. So not perceivable by our material senses, material mind, material intelligence, not perceivable. So the scriptures describe awakening our spiritual faculties. And how is that possible? By only one process, the process of bhakti. We are spirit soul, we got spiritual senses, we got spiritual mind, we got spiritual intelligence, we got spiritual identity. Everything is there. It is just covered by the material mind, by the material identity, material ego, material senses, material covering. So to uncover is the process of bhakti. Sarvopadhi vinirmuktam tatparatvena nirmalam rishikena rishikesha sevanam bhakti ruchyate. And the process of bhakti is the process of descending knowledge, acquiring knowledge through descending process. We simply hear from the proper authority, or we study under the proper authority. Even the books of knowledge, the Puranas, the Itihasas, the original Vedas, the Vedanta, that is the Upanishads, everything we study under a realized soul who has seen the truth, who is perceiving the truth, who is actually experienced by following another authority, not independently. No independent study, no self-study, no university study is going to help in this regard to realize the absolute truth, to realize the self, even the spirit soul. So therefore, Prabhupada is telling here that Shukadev Goswami is warning us the transcendental activities of Lord Ramachandra have been described by great saintly persons who have seen the truth. So we have to hear descriptions or study, read descriptions of the activities of Lord Rama as described by Tattvadarshis, realized souls. So such realized souls are those who have followed the descending process, Avaroha Pantha, not Aroha Pantha, not the ascending process. And descending process means the process of bhakti. Bhakti means simply hear from the realized spiritual master, who is a pure devotee, who is an acharya. Only an acharya can teach, acharya can describe, acharya can help you study, can explain to you, clear your doubts if you have any questions. Only an acharya can do that. Nobody else can do it. So therefore we have to approach the acharya. And therefore in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says the process of acquiring spiritual knowledge is consisting of 20 different items. One of the items of that process of knowledge is acharyopasanam, worship of the spiritual master. Now somebody may say, why we have to worship the spiritual master? No, because worshipping the spiritual master is necessary for developing the requisite qualification to receive the spiritual knowledge. So that qualification for receiving spiritual knowledge described in this verse of the Bhagavad Gita, tadvidhi pranipatena. to know the spiritual subject matter of the absolute truth, pranipatena, one has to surrender to the bona fide spiritual master. Surrender. First of all, surrender is required. You cannot approach a spiritual master in a challenging spirit. So that surrender is possible only by worshipping the Acharya. Pariprashnena, asking relevant questions. It's not prashnena, it is pariprashnena, asking relevant questions. And sevaya, by rendering service to the spiritual master. So, a combination of three different qualifications. Pranipatena, pariprashnena, sevaya. And then the next two lines also describe the qualification of the bona fide spiritual master. Upadekshanti te jnanam. Then a bona fide spiritual master will instruct you in this subject matter. This spiritual subject matter of God. Because they are jnaninaha tattvadarshinaha. They themselves are full of knowledge about God. They have full knowledge of God. And they are tattvadarshinaha. They have realized God. They have seen God. They have perceived God. Not something abstract. Something concrete. Prabhupada says, if you study the first 9 cantos of the Bhagavatam, then you will be able to understand God as a concrete principle. Concrete principle. Not subjective reality, but objective reality. Objective reality. Just like Prabhupada says, if you chant Hare Krishna and achieve perfection in chanting, you will see God face to face like you are seeing any other person. Be able to talk to God, you'll be able to shake hands with God. You see, this is the presentation of the Bhagavatam. This is a presentation of the Bhagavatam. God as a concrete principle, as a real person. Real person. Exactly as described in the scriptures. Exactly as described here. The actual description is there and you can see God as He is. So this particular process of bhakti is what is highlighted in the Bhagavatam. And therefore Shukadeva Goswami is warning that don't simply read or study some book, because the university education system is somebody is having a doctorate, then they have done extensive study on some particular aspect of a particular subject, and they are more or less considered the authority. So somebody very serious about knowing some advanced information or subject knowledge about some particular subject, they will tend to go to a doctorate and learn from such a doctorate. But here it is said, some Rakshasas, some demons, they actually get these type of degrees and they pose as if they are fully knowledgeable about God, and they try to prove God is simply an ordinary person. That's why there are so many theories, no? You hear so many philosophies. Everyone is God. You are God. I am God. Everyone is God. Or some ordinary person, they claim is avatar of God. Just because he may have some mystic powers. Nowadays they don't even have mystic powers. They do some magic, that's all. Or they talk in such a way that they have some good oratorical skills. That is not the qualification of a person who knows God. Oratorical skill. So this is Kali Yuga. You have to be very careful. So the warning is given here, and therefore the Tattvadarshis, we have to approach a Tattvadarshi. One who has realized the truth. There are symptoms of a person who has realized the truth. Just like there are symptoms of the metal, the precious metal called gold. In English there is saying, everything that glitters is not gold. So don't be carried away by just some few appearances or few characteristics. You have to properly examine, properly study, and you have to take help of a person who is expert in that subject, a real expert. Otherwise you'll get cheated. Every chance you'll get cheated. So that warning is given by Shukadeva Goswami here. I'll stop here. Nantara Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai.